What is up, guys, fellow comrades? Welcome to the TikTok political roundtable with the amazing Blake Vo and Mr. Uncle Reedus, who just popped in with us. Can you hear us all right? Reedus? No? And he's gone. But yeah, we're going to be talking about news of the day, Georgia runoff, progressive policy, and maybe how we can reach out to a few of these Trump supporters if that's at all possible. So, yeah. And we'll probably take some questions at the end, stuff like that. First thing I wanted to show you a video. By the way, if you want, if you want to show something, that third button there on the bottom of the screen, you can share what's on your screen if you want to do that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So I seen this video, and it just kind of made me think, like, we have a large segment of the population that just, no matter what, they're not going to believe that Trump didn't win this thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of scares me because they're almost kind of out for blood.
Show up for us. And if Republicans.
And this guy has a large YouTube following. He has, like, I don't know, a couple 100K subs. He hosts a channel called The Red Elephants. Can you hear it all right?
Like
Yeah.
Are not willing to show up for us.
And Mitt Romney
and the rest of them, then we will not be willing to show up for them.
Treason!
Is a traitor.
Where's Governor Abrams?
Brad Raffensperger is a traitor.
Arrest Biden!
Any Republican that allows this to happen is complicit, and we will finish you.
Enemy!
Death to tyrants.
Do they think that we're just going to go away?
No! Stop the steal!
For any Republicans not explicitly helping Trump to stop this deal, we will make sure you are never elected ever again.
Yeah!
To the Republicans that are easily bullied into compliance by the left, we will finish you.
Yeah!
We will end your career forever.
We're the new GOP!
If the Republican establishment stands back and stands by and allows this deal to go through, we will do
Heard that
whatever it
before.
takes to completely destroy the Republican Party.
We the
forever.
people!
We will not accept mere investigations that go nowhere. We will not accept nothing less but a Donald Trump victory. We will not accept fake audits and fake recon.
So basically, his sentiment is anything less than Donald Trump winning is clearly the election was rigged. You guys are all frauds. The deep state stole it. So this is kind of a question I ask everybody that comes on here: is how do we reach out to people? Maybe not that guy specifically, but people that kind of have that mindset right now, because I've seen several polls that say 70% of Republicans believe the election was stolen. That's a fuck ton of people.
Yeah.
So what do you think about how we reach out to someone like, that listens to right-wing media? How do we pull them out of the rabbit hole, basically?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a tough question. That's the
It's the tough question. Yeah.
So and you're right. People like that have already, they're not interested in having a conversation. They're not interested in having a debate. They want to have an argument. They enter into all of these discussions already assuming that they're right. And first of all, we should also not be shocked by any of this. Donald Trump alleged, even in the election that he won, that there was mass voter fraud because he lost the popular vote by 3 million. And he said there were conveniently 3 million illegal aliens that voted, right? Those were his words, because he couldn't possibly have actually lost the popular vote. There was no way that could happen.
Right. Well, Soros has, 6 million illegals on standby.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just at the beck and call all over the place, just not conveniently positioned around the country to win the Electoral College. So
can you hear us?
Hey,
There we go. All right. Pull your yeah, you're good. But go ahead.
Yeah.
You were-
So, the one of the common, and I've used this before so anybody that's in the chat here that's followed me before will know that my debate style or my conversation style with people that disagree with me is based on the prospect of meet people where they are, but never let them stay there. So you have to acknowledge that people are emotional. Political identity, especially in the 21st century, is the most important part of an individual identity. And that's what people apply to themselves the most fervently. So if you can enter into a conversation understanding that that person is just as passionate, even though they're obviously very wrong, but they are just as passionate as you are, as long as you can try and have that respectful dialogue, that's the important first step. However, if they're not willing to accept a few baseline facts, and if they are so dedicated to not only being inside of a bubble, but they want to be inside a bubble that is so small they are now calling Fox News liberal propaganda, right, that is where the line is that you're not going to be able to get anybody that's across it. So the goal would be probably that 30% that aren't in that camp of the election was stolen, because that 70% that are, you have to hope that eventually what's going to happen is, and there are systemic issues like gerrymandering leading to in more intense primary processes, and so forcing your candidates to be more like the base of their party rather than more like the middle of the electorate. Multiple different things like that, systemic issues that lead to this. But if you can focus on once the sort of vitriolic individual, which is what Trump really is, he's sort of the instigator in a lot of this. Once he's out of the body politic, then we can slowly get to where the normal becomes closer to what it used to be. And maybe from there, that's how we do it. But this isn't going to be something we're going to cure like overnight. We're not going to be able to do that.
No, and the thing like and that's what I say. It's not an overnight like, oh, he's gone. You know, the big thing with the neoliberals is, oh, I can go back to brunch now. Like,
yeah,
that's not how it worked. Like, you go into brunch is how we got here in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's going to take a lot of time, and a big wrench that's going to be thrown into it is I don't think Trump is going to go anywhere. Like, even if he's not, running for president, which I think he's going to hold off on saying he's not running for as long as possible. But, he's going to be there. He's still going to have, some kind of social media, even if he gets kicked off of Twitter. He's not going anywhere. Like, the Republicans Party is still the party of Trump.
Yeah.
And these people, they firmly believe that he won the election and it was stolen from him, and the ghosts of Hugo Chavez and some German voting machines stole it from him.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I think that and to any Republican, and I'm speaking to my own junior senator, Mr. Tom Cotton here, to any Republican that honestly thought that the best way for them to win in 2024 was going to be to follow this line that the election was stolen from Trump in an effort to play to his base, you have screwed yourself to a level you don't understand. Donald Trump really believes that his base is his base. He thinks it is his property. He's not going to let you just have it. Put down money now. Donald Trump will, as long as he's not legally allowed not to, as long as he's not legally disallowed because he's in prison, he's going to run for president again in 4 years if he's alive. I bet money on it, because that same amount of support that was there to put him in office 4 years ago is still there now. And if he can run on, they stole the election from us 4 years ago. Look what they did in whatever time. It doesn't matter if, everybody is rich within the span of the last 4 years or the next 4 years. Trump will still run saying, look what they've done to you. He'll run on what he did 4 years ago, which is Hillary Clinton is bad and brown people are scary. And that's how he got elected the first time. And the reason why he didn't get reelected this time is because, unlike the last time, he had to run on a record. And his record wasn't
that's the only reason.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Do you guys think there's going to be... Do you guys think there's going to be like a Tea Party 2.0 with like a Trump twist or something like that?
Well, it's going to be the Q Party.
Yeah.
The Tea Party was the extreme wing that we got during Obama. But, now it's becoming the party of conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But Well, yeah, but just to bounce off of that, here's a poll from Polling USA, asking people: would you like to see Trump continue to be the leading voice for the Republicans, or do you think someone new should fill that role? 53% said Trump, even after everything.
No.
I'll be honest. I figured that number would be higher. I'm kind of surprised it's that close to being split.
Yeah, his approval rating in the Republican Party is like 95% or something insanely high. So
yeah,
I would expect it to be higher.
But I asked Blake, and like I kind of like a big part of like my content and what I do is like trying to pull people out of the right wing propaganda hole. But I was asking him, and I kind of want to get your opinion too. Like, how do we reach people that are in the Newsmax deep hole bubble? Yeah, no, it's not an easy question.
I have no idea. I was thinking about the other day, like maybe we should like infiltrate it and then like invent some conspiracy about how they shouldn't vote, otherwise like the deep state is gonna like get their name or something. I have literally no clue. So yeah, but it's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, no, we could say when you go to vote and you sign the book, that's when they chip you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and they're honestly they're not far off from that. I mean, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is becoming more and more the new. She's becoming the new Trump. She's becoming the new face of Congress. She's the Republican Party's AOC, like the new hot firebrand. Just the only differences between her and AOC is AOC wants everyone to have health care, and she pushed that Democratic satanic cabal was running the Democratic Party for 2 years. She says she doesn't believe in QAnon, but she pushed it openly for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first big video I ever had on TikTok was about her, and she compared Muslims to horses, just all kinds of crazy shit. And she's, more and more you see her in interviews, and she is now backed officially by the party. And I see that party just going more and more that way. And everything, like you mentioned, that Fox News is now too liberal. Well, now, even today, Newsmax is too liberal, according to them. Newsmax came out. Newsmax came out and said that Biden won. They came out and they said Newsmax calls Joe Biden the winner in Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania based on certifications, because they certified the state. And where the hell are they at? Here are some of the responses to that. So, yeah, I'm done with Newsmax. Unfollowed. Me too. Newsmax is a shit. Won't be watching anymore. Glad you like Fox or out of the closet. We'll post this to my Facebook page with 5,000 friends and thousands of followers. So now even Newsmax, who's about as right-wing as you can get, is the liberal propaganda media.
Yeah, the projection among the right of how the left, quote unquote, are bought and sold by the media, and they are the sheep that only believe what they want to believe. And at the same time, anybody that acknowledges anything other than what the folks on the extreme right believe, will automatically, they've been bought and sold by the left. Like the tightness,
it's instantaneously.
Yeah, the tightness in that bubble is suffocating.
Right. And well, they even came out with a conspiracy theory too, but which kind of I thought was funny, because Donald Trump did the same thing. This is a big QAnon account. It's oh, you can't see it. Hold on. Anyone who gave to the Clinton Foundation cannot be trusted. Flashback 2015 report: Newsmax CEO donates $1 million to Clinton Foundation. So, they're which Donald Trump did the exact same thing. So I'm waiting for them to say like, well, that was actually his body double, or something like that.
Like there's at that point that's when you remind people that if you're a wealthy person, you put your hand in every cookie jar. That's how you make sure that regardless of who wins, your taxes stay low.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's and it's they can just they turn around everything so quick. Whether it's this stuff with Sidney Powell or just really anything, and they like bob and weave, and they find this narrative that fits, and it's still even after what is a 1 in 36 in court, and not a single fraud. Most of these cases they're not even going into court and even claiming fraud, and they're still getting thrown out.
Right. Because you can't lie under oath. So
yeah,
yeah.
they still are a large group of the population is saying no, Donald Trump won, full of fraud.
Yeah,
it's like,
which
well,
is
can we get
in the short term, it's not going to do anything. In the short term, it's not going to change who actually gets inaugurated at noon on January 20th next year. In the long term, it is unbelievably dangerous for a democratic system of government where, when it comes to what gives your institutions their power, is the consent of those that lost, and the willingness of them to go along with things until they have another opportunity to win at the ballot box. So these kinds of moves are the kinds that chip away at the marble and at away at the foundations of a democratic society. So like this is not the opening shot. We're a little bit beyond that, but it's getting worse, and it takes I said it before in a TikTok, democracy requires diligence. And so it is a constant 24 hours, 7-day a week, 365. It's a marathon that you have to run all the time, and it gets exhausting, but the alternative is worse.
Right. Yeah, it's that's one thing I'm kind of upset with some of the people I see on the left, and just Democrats in general, for not making a bigger deal out of what Trump is doing, because yes, he's a clown show. It's not working, but the fact that he's doing it and it's going to normalize it, and this is going to be the standard for every Republican
this was a coup
from here on
attempt.
out.
Like this was a coup attempt. Like it's not, and it failed, and Trump is incredibly incompetent, obviously, but like that's what it is, and it's still very dangerous. So
the move by the county board of elections folks in Wayne County the other day in Michigan, that was where they were trying it. That was the shot of the coup attempt. And then when that failed, when the folks that showed up to that virtual meeting made the stink they did and forced them to re-vote at the end of it, and they went ahead and certified the results for Detroit, that was when it failed in earnest. But that was where they started it. That was where it was going to start. Because if they were able to do that there, they were able to do that, replicate that. And
it only takes one.
That's the first domino that falls. And thankfully it didn't work, but they did try it. So
and that's where I'm worried about. And one of the guys on that board was found retweeting QAnon stuff, of course. But that's what I'm worried about, is the normalization of this crazy batshit. I didn't win, so I'm gonna just pound the table and scream until I physically can't anymore. You got Rudy Giuliani on TV with hair dye running all down his face, talking about voter fraud, and Hugo Chavez. It's like we're in the upside down. And it's fun to look at. Jake Tapper called it a clown coup, and I thought that was pretty appropriate.
Nice.
But all right, well, did you guys see the speaking of dirty tricks from the Republican Party, did you guys see the story in Florida with the shadow candidates?
I did not.
I think I've heard of this, right? They run candidates that they didn't turn in any candidate photos. Their names, like their last names, were the same as the Democratic candidates. So people accidentally voted for the wrong candidate, and it ended up being the margin.
Yeah, pretty.
Oh my God.
One guy lost by 36 votes, and this person didn't even have a photo, never showed up to the debates. Turns out to be somebody who was a registered Republican his entire life. But then this company, I'll read you the headline. A dark money mystery in Florida centers on the campaign of a spoiler candidate who appeared to help a Republican win by 32 votes. A month before Election Day in Florida, a mysterious company called Proclivity, Inc. contributed $550,000 to a pair of newly formed political action committees in the state. 2 days later, the money flowed from the PACs to an Orlando printing press and advertising firm. So basically, they took $550K and created a bunch of pamphlets saying that this this liberal candidate was super lefty, for Medicare for all, Green New Deal, all this stuff, and they sent it out, around the county, and it got, and it siphoned off like 6,000 votes in one race. Another race, it got like 5 or 6,000, siphoning off these votes from these, Democratic candidates, and they ended up picking up like 2 or 3 state seats, which, you guys know that's where all the policy is actually,
Right.
passed. The federal government is a shit show at this point. You can't get anything passed.
Mhm.
All these laws get done at a state level, and the Republican Party is, figuring out all these fucking sneaky ways to pick up these seats, and it's working. And in Florida, Ron DeSantis isn't going to like jump up and go investigate this or anything, or even worry about it or pass a law.
Right.
So yeah, I'm kind of worried about the dirty tricks just getting that much worse.
Yeah. Well, and it after Justice Ginsburg died, I did both a TikTok live and then a Twitch stream about it, where I talked about how fundamentally Republicans are a lot better than Democrats at wielding power. When Republicans have it, they know how to use it to their advantage. Democrats, for whatever reason, maybe it's because and I say this as a registered member of the Democratic Party, not only that, but as someone who is in an elected position within my state's Democratic Party. I don't know if it's because we watched The West Wing too many times or what, but we have sort of this romantic view of the idea of power, that it's something that you have to handle with care, and you can't do something just too far outside of the norms. So the parties operate in 2 different spheres. The Democratic Party operates inside of what is the norm, and the Republican Party operates in the sphere of what is acceptable. And one of those is a lot bigger than the other. And so you get situations like where Mitch McConnell holds open a Senate or a Supreme Court seat for 10 months, and then less than a month before an election rams through a nominee. You have situations where what we have right now going on in Florida, like you mentioned, where folks, where the Republicans will back candidates in an attempt to play spoiler to try and siphon off votes from progressive candidates. So, and my response to it at the moment was, especially if Democrats won the Senate, which obviously we still can if we win both of the seats in Georgia, but that's when we've got to start matching that. We've got to, this isn't quote unquote a both sidesism here, but we've got to start wielding power better. We've got to, if we have the Senate, we've got to make Washington, D.C. a state. That's going to be 2 senators for us in perpetuity. Washington, D.C. has never voted for a Republican, ever. So give us those 2 senators. If we flipped any state legislative chambers, gerrymander the living hell out of their congressional districts and their state legislative districts. I mean, we have got to pack the court. It needs to have more than 9 judges anyway. An 80-something-year-old woman with cancer is dying. Dying is the most predictable thing that's going to happen to someone at that age with that health condition. Her dying should not have turned the country upside down like it did. It should have never gotten to that point in the first place. So we just have to stop taking ourselves out of the game when we know what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, we got to where our strategy was hope Ginsburg doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said about power begets power. So once you have power, it's even harder. When they have power, it's even harder to take it away. And when you're in power, you can do a lot more to stay in power. And I know that packing the courts is a long shot because of what's his name, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin.
Yeah, Manchin.
He's already come out. He's basically a fucking Republican.
Yeah.
But I mean, these are things that, and that's another reason I wanted to have everybody on and just kind of talk about this kind of stuff, because it's things like that we really need to work on. Like the Supreme Court at this point is just a joke. It's just another partisan body.
Yeah.
And they have a huge advantage for the foreseeable future. I mean,
decades.
Basically, the most of our adult lives for Amy Coney Barrett's not even 50 yet. I think Kavanaugh and what's his name, the other one, Gorsuch. They're 40s, 50s. The drinking might catch up to Kavanaugh, but who knows?
Yeah, I think Kavanaugh is 52, and I think Gorsuch is 55.
Right.
So I mean, they'll be on the courts for 2 decades at least.
Exactly. And I think there's only one other justice that might come up during Biden's first 4 years, depending on if anybody retires. But I don't, if Republicans hold the Senate, I don't see them even allowing somebody to sit somebody.
Yeah.
There was several senators that said they would not even vote on a justice if Hillary Clinton would have won.
Right.
Wow.
And yeah, Ted Cruz being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is so and it just shows again how they don't care how hypocritical they are. They don't care how openly hypocritical they are. They went from, it's in 10 months. We have 10 months during an election year. And by the way, Merrick Garland is not this like crazy liberal guy.
No,
he was not like this extremist left-wing judge. He was a moderate guy who President Obama nominated to replace a moderate justice in Justice Kennedy. I mean, not that, or Justice Scalia. So it would have been a moderate replacing a conservative. So it would have been a swing, but it wouldn't have been a net gain for liberals.
Right. He did that on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He put in place someone who was to the point where they couldn't. The reason why they had to stonewall the nomination is because if they brought it up for a vote, moderate Republicans, which were enough to make up a majority, couldn't justify voting no. And that's why Mitch McConnell stonewalls all this legislation. It's not just because he doesn't want to bring it up for a vote. It's because he knows his caucus, his moderate wing of his caucus, can't justify to their constituents not voting for it. So he just stonewalls it to save everybody because he's going to get reelected in Kentucky by 20 points. So he doesn't have to worry about any personal problems there for him. And so the court is that is one of the biggest ball games right now. And to your point, it is not in our favor right now. It is heavily leaning towards the other way. We got lucky, I think, with the arguments a couple of weeks ago with the Affordable Care Act. It looks like the justices are going to, at least to me, based on my reading of the transcripts, it looks like they're probably going to keep it. But I mean, we're not going to, right now, we don't stand any chance of adding the public option to the thing because we don't control the Senate. So,
right. Well, and that's the court is, it's so important, and these Republicans can run just on that. They're basically running just to say, hey, listen, I put someone on the court, and that's it. They don't have to give any other policy. That's basically why they are voting for these people. That's how Mitch McConnell wins by 20 points, which what a waste of money Amy McGrath was, which I knew that was going to happen. Right. She was a terrible candidate. She was always going to lose by 20 points.
Yep.
The worst part about that, though, is a lot of Democratic consultants made a fuck ton of money working for Amy McGrath. So they don't care. They got, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. She must have raised $100 million to lose by 20 points.
Yeah, I think they said she raised $88 million.
Yeah. But speaking of public option, there was a thing I read in American Prospect, and it was talking about there's a section in the Affordable Care Act that allows the president to, by executive order, give people health service if they're in like a crisis. They did it for a town. What was it called? For Libby, Montana. The entire population is allowed access to Medicare. It's basically Medicare for all because of a mining. There's a mine there, and basically it's a lot of like bill language, a bunch of legalese shit. But pretty much, there's a section that allows for basically he could give everyone that has been affected by coronavirus access to free healthcare. And I think that's what we have to do. And that's one thing I think we need to push Biden on as, people that want progressive policy is Donald Trump was very good at finding all these little routes and, Bill Barr with his unitary executive theory, finding these ways around with executive orders. And I think that's something we need to do with, stuff like, Medicare for all, which I don't think Biden will ever go that far. But if we could just get, healthcare service for the people that have been affected by COVID and their families, that's a win. That's a big win. And there's another bill that actually Chuck Schumer signed on to with I think it was Elizabeth Warren to give $50,000 worth of student debt relief for everybody, and I think that's something we need to like try to focus on is get them to do more executive actions, and because I don't want to hear the we can't do nothing because we don't have the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I get tired of that.
True,
very quickly.
but I mean, it would be a lot nicer to get like actual legislation because, like, with executive orders, the next guy could just undo them. But
right,
yeah,
no, that would be like the backup. I think it's possible we could win the Senate too, because I think a lot of people, if depending on how this goes with Trump, I think it could, they could, bow out. Yeah. I mean, that video I showed you at the beginning, that took place in Georgia. Like, these people are threatening to boycott every election if they don't get their way, basically.
Well, wait, really?
See, so that's I think there's I don't know where it's gonna. I see the two paths. I'm not smart enough to know which one it's gonna go down. That is one of them. The other one is, imagine you are a moderate Republican in Georgia, and you voted for Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, but obviously Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue both got the most votes in their respective races, though they didn't get enough to actually win.
Didn't Warnock
get
more?
His, but he didn't get. But there were also
50%.
There was also another Republican in that race who was more right wing than Kelly was, so she probably siphoned off quite a few of Republican votes. But if you are a moderate Republican and you voted against Trump at the top of the ticket, but you then voted for Republican senators down ballot, those two Republican senators, let's not forget, signed a joint letter, a joint statement, calling on an elected official within their own party, the Secretary of State in Georgia, to resign because they said he sucked at his job. So if you're a moderate Republican and you voted for those two, and they are in line with Donald Trump, who you voted against at the top of the ticket, maybe you don't vote for the Democrats, but you probably don't show up to vote at all. And that's still votes that they're not getting. So it's either going to be these folks that are the ultra right wing are going to show up because they feel like Donald Trump got screwed and they're going to show up to vote because this is their retribution. Or it's going to be there are enough people that were moderate Republicans that are either going to bolt and vote for Democrats because of the way those senators acted, or they're just not going to show up. And I think the Democratic base in Georgia is energized right now because after a heartbreaking defeat 2 years ago when Stacey Abrams ran for governor, after the governor, the then Secretary of State, purged people on the voting rolls because their middle initial wasn't the same on their driver's license as it was their voter registration. And then you win the presidential race there for the first time since Bill Clinton ran in '92. And suddenly you've got, you feel energized. You feel like you can actually flip your state. So I don't think you're going to have any trouble with folks that are center left and even to the left, because they're going to realize that's still moving in the right direction, showing up. If you get the moderate right to not show up, and the extreme right has this battle among themselves of do they show up or do they quote unquote boycott the race, I think it's there to be able to win. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I do see why it probably could.
Yeah, I could see what I'm guessing right now. My best guess is it's going to be a split. I think because Loeffler she just oozes like elitist, corrupt asshole, which she is. I mean, she after a coronavirus meeting went and lied to the public, and then went and bought $3 million worth of Zoom stock or Cenex, whatever it's called, but like Zoom software basically. And her husband runs the New York Stock Exchange. She's worth $500 million. She's the definition of a corrupt elitist. I think that one's a little bit of an easier win. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a section, but it's not a big section of Republicans that are just, the never Trump, and the way that Loeffler and Perdue are going about this is they're just going all in on corruption. It was stolen, going after members of their own party. I mean, when you're saying that Brian Kemp and the Georgia Secretary of State are, basically trying to steal the election, when you're going down that road, like, you've entered fucking Looniesville.
Yeah.
Because Brian Kemp might be one of the most corrupt. Go ahead.
They were really transparent with their election, like, to anyone even somewhat rationally looking at like what happened in Georgia, it's obviously Biden won. So yeah, Purdue is looking kind of bad with that stuff.
Yeah, they both are. I do think that I agree that, and I also think part of it is because I just think that Raphael Warnock is a better candidate than Jon Ossoff. No offense to Jon Ossoff, but I just think
he's not a good candidate.
I think that Reverend Warnock's just a better candidate. So I think he was going to do better no matter who he ran against. But I do think he is running against the weaker incumbent anyway. So I do think we have at least a really good shot of flipping one of the seats. And then I think the map in 2022 looks even better for us than this one did. Because we have open seats in North Carolina. There will be an open seat in Pennsylvania. There will be an open seat in Iowa. I think most of, if not all, if I can remember off the top of my head, and I haven't looked at the map in a bit, but I think most of the Democratic defensive seats are in safe states. So I'm not saying just like states that we've won in the last presidential cycle. I'm talking Massachusetts, California, and Washington State. So like we're probably not going to lose any seats. We stand to be in good position to pick up seats. So, and it's hard to do in a midterm, but if we have, because we'll have competent leadership and the bar for how to actually handle COVID is literally in hell because of the way that Donald Trump has done things, since we're going to be able to somehow find a way to magically clear that, people are going to be more willing to vote for Democrats because it was a Democratic president that was able to usher us through this. Then we stand a chance to actually get the Senate in 2 years. I don't know what that'll translate into. I would obviously like to win it now, but I think short to medium term things look good for us so long as we don't do anything stupid.
I think if Biden gets a few things done, we need to get what he needs to do, and this is something that I wish Nancy Pelosi would have done with the last stimulus. Agree to it, agree to Trump's bill, put it on the Senate floor, and make them vote against it. Make them vote against $1.5 trillion worth of stimulus. Because the Republicans did not have the votes in the Senate. So I really think Nancy Pelosi messed up with that. But I think if Biden can get some decent legislation passed, or just if he can get a stimulus passed, if he can get something done with COVID, if we can get that, rolled out well, and everything, squared away. If we get a decent amount of stuff done, I think 2022 looks promising. But, if they, throw their hands up and say, oh, well, we didn't win the Senate, so we couldn't get anything done. And, we don't really accomplish a lot. I think that opens a path for us to, lose the House. And, depending on the map, we might be, keep the same kind of where we're at in the Senate. But, that depends a lot on also where the Republicans go from here.
Right. Because
they're venturing, like every week, they're venturing further and further into crazy town. And so is their base. So I think we have a really good possibility of siphoning off a good portion, because 8 million people that voted for Trump in the last election voted for Obama in 2012. And, that's what I've been telling people, is that if we can just get, 10%, 15% of that Trump vote, I mean, that's every election for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And until the Republican Party finally decides to shift and realize maybe promoting QAnon isn't a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, this election had the possibility to be a really important realignment election for the Republican Party. Unfortunately, the fact that Donald Trump ended up getting 74 million votes, it's not going to be that.
Right.
There was a shot to really be a big reckoning where Republicans could say, okay, it was a fluke 4 years ago. We did just win because we were running against Hillary Clinton. We got our asses kicked this time around. We need to straighten up or we're going to be screwed at the national level. And that didn't happen. So.
Right. Yeah, no, and I was honestly I follow a lot of, right-wing stuff, and I'm, always looking at right-wing media and stuff. And I thought it would be honestly, Joe Biden won by a lot of votes, but it was very close in a lot of states. Yeah. And I really thought we were going to take the Senate. I was very sure of that, but I mean, it didn't happen. And that goes to show you how well this propaganda works. They don't do it for no reason.
Yep.
And they're always going to pull out every dirty trick. We didn't I don't think we flipped a single state legislature. We lost governor's seats. It was not. All around, it wasn't the greatest election, and I think that's for running a lot of you know, centrist establishment candidates. And that's one thing that really transcends both parties, left or right. People don't want these elite establishment like types. They're over them. They're sick of them.
Yeah.
What was it? I saw a poll. Yeah, a new poll shows 68% of Americans want senators to block any corporate Biden nominees. So any like careerist, corporatist, those type of people just don't want that, and that's why they voted for Trump. And that's why people like AOC and Jamal Bowman, people like that won and or got reelected in pretty grand fashion.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think it was we barely kept the House. We also need to remember that, like we were projected to, at some point, a lot of people thought we were going to gain more than 10 seats, and we've got 223, 224 is what we're going to end up with. I mean, it's something
like that. Yeah,
it's like the slimmest majority Democrats have had since the 50s.
I think we ended up losing like 9 seats, right?
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, we don't need to act, thank God Trump is gone. That was literally step number 1, but that's as far as we got.
That was the only W, yeah.
Yeah, we got the top item off the list crossed off and nothing else. And in fact, everything else went pretty bad. So, and we have to look at it from the perspective of, we preached how awful Donald Trump was as a president. Yes, we were right. But if all we could accomplish was beating him and we could do nothing else, we don't need to tout this like this was some big victory for us. We don't need to take a victory lap. You need to run with whatever you can get done. And you need to start examining yourself and see why, for whatever reason, you couldn't do this, translate this down ballot. Because as you said, the real problem here is that this is a census year and we didn't flip state legislative chambers. So a lot of when it gets to apportionment, when that happens next year and we start redrawing these congressional district lines, we might end up in a world of hurt. We might not do so hot 2 years from now, because the Supreme Court ruled not long ago that basically gerrymandering is totally okay. So
pretty much, yeah. It had to be like extremely egregious for them to throw it to change it. I think like 1 or 2 states had a couple cases that they upheld or overturned the map or whatever.
Yeah, I believe that was North Carolina and Pennsylvania. Everybody else was fine.
But yeah, no, like I think one thing that Democrats and Joe Biden especially did a terrible job at is they didn't tie Trump to the Republicans. They tried to separate them. Like, oh, Trump is bad, and that's why the Republicans are bad. Not Trump is just the worst problem in the Democrat or in the Republican Party. Like, they should have done more of tying Trump to the Republicans if they wanted to defeat them down ballot. And I think he did a terrible job of that. Like, with this whole, if we get Trump out, things will go back to normal. Well, things weren't that great under normal. That's why we got Trump in the first place.
Yeah.
And Republicans were horrible in 2015. And they're maybe 10% worse now. It's not like they were like this good party that got corrupted by this one guy. That's just a false narrative.
Yeah.
But no, progressive stuff is popular. These are Fox News exit polls. Should America switch to a government-run healthcare system? 72% in favor, with 40% of that strongly favored. When asked about Roe v. Wade, 79% of people supported it. This is a Fox News poll. 55% of people said the U.S. needs more strict gun laws. When asked if we should make a pathway to citizenship for illegals, 72% said yes. So, I mean, this stuff is all very, very popular. Yet somehow we got destroyed.
Yeah, and those are election. And what's worse is, like, those are exit polls from this election, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
From Fox News.
Wow.
And keep in mind that hardly any Democrats actually voted on election day. This election, the majority of votes for this election were cast prior to election day, and so that means Democrats weren't in that exit poll. So it's not
That's
even
a good point. Yeah.
It's not even our folks that they polled there. It's Republicans. It's conservatives. That's why it's so important, because all of these policies individually, that's why Bernie Sanders is so popular. That's why so many, like you mentioned, AOC and all these other people are so popular. When you talk about the individual policies, the individual policy initiatives are great. The problem is Republicans are really good at branding. And that's because their entire branding is the word no. And that's it. Like, that's conservatism. It's just no. Whatever you want, no. And so with that and socialism, no, because socialism. And so when it's all put under that banner, that's when you run into the problems. That's a Democrats' two worst problems. One, they don't know how to wield power. Two, they don't know how to communicate a message. We can have really good communicators like Bill Clinton, like Barack Obama, like people like that are just really good at giving speeches and really good at communicating messages. But on the whole, the party sucks at it. Like, we're just really bad at talking to people, controlling our own narrative, being the ones that are actually in charge of talking about what we believe in. Until we get good at that, we got to not be shocked when elections go this way.
Right. Yeah, no, I've always said that Democrats and progressives especially are bad at labels, and Republicans are great at saying like 17 buzzwords, and that's their entire message. America, I love my guns, freedom. You know, we're over here like defund the police. That just sounds bad.
The Dems have kind of been coming off as like woke assholes. You know what I'm saying? I wish they would focus on policy a little bit more. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a fan of their branding at all. Andrew Yang, I thought, had really good branding. I mean, he got like 6% as a newcomer. So, yeah, and he really focused on the economy, which is something that Democrats are objectively better at. You know what I'm saying? But like, most of Americans trust the economy with Republicans more. So maybe if we focus our messaging a little bit more on like economic things, that would be pretty cool. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, I think that progressives do, like, I think it's more than it's a narrative than what is actually the case. Like, I think Republicans are very good at painting progressives as like these crazy socialist Antifa fucking window busting, you know, they're gonna come and steal your job and fuck your mom and then burn down her house. You know, that's kind of, they're very good at branding the left like that, when for the most part it's just like, I just want people to have health care, man. You know, and it's a very, very simple, but they're so good at pushing that message. And the left is not as good at rallying around ideas. Like, the Republicans are very good at like rallying around like their core values, and we're kind of a little more nitpicky as far as like getting together and really like pushing one message out. You know what I mean? And I think we need to work on that, definitely. And I think we just need more voices too, you know, as we get more progressives in Congress, and as we get more people that don't take corporate PAC money, you get actual policy pushed out there, and not, you know, some Pfizer, Goldman Sachs approved bill that's just watered down in a bunch of horse shit. And I think that really is going to go a long way, because people are just sick of the establishment shit. They just really are.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you hit on what is, I think, the most important point there. And that is, we need better voices, better faces for the party. Who think of the three top people for the Democratic Party as of January 20th are going to be President Joe Biden, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Like, the youngest one of those is in their early 70s. The oldest is 80. Are you kidding me? Like, we need people that were born in this half of the last century, at least, when we're talking about when we're talking about what we want to do here. Like, I mean, we cannot try to be the party of the future when, on average, our members of Congress and our leaders are significantly older than the other side. That's not going to work. People see that. They understand. They're not stupid.
All right. No, we need people that were born after Joe Biden got in office.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our biggest downfalls, is our messengers. And, you know, Nancy Pelosi has a lower rating with Republicans, approval rating, than Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Like, they've been able, that's another thing they're good at. They take like 2 or 3 people, they demonize them, and then they tie everybody in the party to them. So you're not voting for AOC, or, well, she's one of the demons too, even though it's not, you know, you're voting for John Ossoff. that means you're voting for Nancy Pelosi. Like they're
Yeah.
so good at that. Instead of, because when you go issue for issue, they're just bad on everything. I made a video about
Right.
Charlie Kirk, his dumb rant about the left hates Thanksgiving. Like the reason that he says shit like this is because he has bad ideas and
Yeah.
he knows it. And the only way he's going to be able to sell you on anything is if he does this culture war horse shit, which is pretty much all they have at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I said the same thing, and my followers here will know I've done TikTok videos about it. The way the Republican talking point for the last 14 years has been every Democrat that's running for Congress is going to unzip the back of their head like a fucking Scooby-Doo villain, and Nancy Pelosi's going to pop out. That's literally their talking point for the last 14 years, and considering how many congressional elections they've been winning, I can't blame them, but that's just what they do.
Right.
Yeah, and we haven't been able to do the same thing with Trump, like you were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like we should have that same messaging of when Republicans get elected, they will unzip the back of their head and it will be Trump. But yeah.
Right. We can't, like, a big portion of their party follows QAnon, and we can't make that stick. Like I'm not a big fan of Bill Maher, but he is right on a few things. Like we cannot make anything stick like they can to us. Like Joe Biden, says the "you ain't black" comment, which was dumb and stupid, but on a comparative scale to what Trump has done, who literally retweeted a guy screaming white power, it's nothing. And they made that a story for like 2 months, but yet Trump retweets QAnon on a daily basis. And it's, you don't even hear about it. Like we can't make anything stick.
There is an egregious double standard within the media, and that is one of the, obviously media plays a big role in all of this. And it's the both sidesism, the attempt, if you're a media personality, because we live in a world where perception is more important than reality. If you are perceived to be biased, that is more important than whether or not you actually are biased. And so if you are any kind of news outlet or any kind of media publication, if you want to appear objective in any way, shape, or form, that means if somebody says the sky is blue and somebody says the sky is green, you have to say, I see both sides, whether or not, even though you know what the answer is. You have you have to give credence, or else someone's going to call you biased, and then people that are going to watch that are going to go, well, I can see where they're saying that they're biased because they are clearly taking one side over the other. So if you're like a casual observer of the news, because politics is tough, it's hard to understand a lot unless you live and breathe it, and you just hear one side talking about they're just objectively against us the entire time, and you're a person who has grown up with at times a chip on your shoulder, you can empathize with the idea that these people have been just nothing but against you from the get-go. So we've got to find a way, and that's why, to an extent, I noticed during this election cycle, and maybe you both did too, CNN was harder on Republicans than MSNBC, like by a lot. I mean, it was nuts. The number of times like you would like flip on MSNBC and they'd just be talking about economic numbers, and then you flip on CNN and it was basically Don Lemon just shouting expletives into the camera about Donald Trump. I was like, whoa, I thought my channels were backwards. I mean, good on them, because the stuff they were talking about was true, but I was kind of shocked to see CNN with regards to their rhetoric seeming like they were further left than MSNBC was.
I feel like MSNBC went harder against Bernie than they did against Trump. Yeah. And you're right about CNN. Like they kind of went just mask off, like Trump is a bad guy and we're just going to talk about it. Like whether it was Como, Tapper, Don Lemon, as you mentioned, like they just kind of said, this guy is bad and we're going to talk about it, especially after the COVID thing. Because Republicans, that's another place where they take advantage. They use that media trying to stay neutral thing to their advantage and just push out batshit theories. And it's like, oh, well, we looked into what you said about Medicare for all, so now we got to look into lizard people. So they use that definitely to their advantage.
Somewhat completely unrelated, but still kind of on the topic of because it's media, and you mentioned Cuomo, when Andrew would come on Chris's show and those two would end up with like their family spats and their drama would suddenly become a 10-minute reality show. I tweeted once with tagging both of them and CNN, and I said, when the Cuomo bros are fighting on live TV, and it was a bottle of spicy Italian dressing. But
That's funny.
I thought it was funny anyway.
Mm. No, I like it. So usually I take like questions, but before we get to that, I wanted to show National Nurses United just did a study and came out with some numbers about healthcare, and it was kind of interesting about costs and stuff. So profits over the last 20 years for the healthcare industry. In 1999, it was 16, almost 16 and a half billion. In 2018, it was 83 billion. Just to give you an idea. What's the next one here? Expenditures. I'll link this study in the description if anybody wants to read it. It's like 93 pages, but it's really good. Consumer price index, basically medical costs have gone up like 20%, but profits have gone up 300%. Let's see what else here. Average hospital charge to cost ratio. In 1999, it was 200%. In 2018, it was 417%. And one other piece on here. Hospitals in the United States charge patients as much as 1,800% more than their cost amid the coronavirus pandemic, according to a new study. The 100 most expensive hospitals in the United States charge between $1,129 and $1,808 for every $100 of their cost, according to a study by National Nurses United. So, in case you were wondering why healthcare costs are out fucking outrageous,
yeah,
that's why.
That is what what we in the biz call obscene.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I read that and it was like I seen this and I trade stocks, and so I look at spreadsheets and quarterly earnings and all that stuff, and especially in the healthcare field, I always pay close attention because in the stock game, it's all about beating last quarter. If you beat the last quarter's earnings, the stock goes up. If you don't, the stock tanks. It's just how it is. So every 3 months, they're looking for more profits, and it's just gotten such this hyper crony capitalistic system. And every 3 months, healthcare profits are going up, and they got to go up somehow. So the raise in costs is just astronomical.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous at this point. Like you said, it's absurd. And I don't think there's any better pitch for Medicare for all than reading that study.
Yeah, because the way to look at that is when you're looking at it in terms of from the profit standpoint, it's every time you are not healthy enough to work, or every time you've got a member of your family or a child that has gone through some kind of medical distress, these companies don't look at it as a moral imperative to make sure that you are healthy enough, or that your family member is healthy enough to make sure that they can live a full life and continue to do what they enjoy. They look at you as dollar signs. And that's where you as an individual have to decide, are you morally okay with that? And, we've moved the needle from, healthcare companies no longer being able to deny you coverage because of lifetime maximums or a pre-existing condition. But that's the bare minimum.
Right.
That's you've moved 1 foot down the 100-meter dash. I mean, you've got a long way to go on that run. You got to keep up the sprint.
Well, and even that's been in jeopardy.
Yeah.
With the ACA being in up for grabs or whatever,
right.
Possibly being thrown out. And it's just and most of that, about 40% of that, is just outrageous administrative costs, and that's where the single payer system, you don't have those costs.
Right.
And it's just one policy. I don't understand how it's not even more popular than it is, which it's over 50% popular. Right. And I think messaging on that is something we really need to work on. because apparently just calling it socialist works very well.
Even though, I mean, like socialized medicine, quote unquote, universal healthcare it's obviously not new. What, Germany had theirs in the 1880s? I mean, this isn't something that's like, it's not even literally a 20th century invention. Like, this was in the 19th century they were making this stuff happen. So, like, you can go way back and find people and find countries that were willing to do this way in the past. I mean, it goes into the branding, and I think it's sort of like you have to present it as a moral imperative. Sort of the same way with education. To me, with education, if you're not pitching education as an issue of national security, you're not having the right conversation. Right.
And that's why I really like the by the way, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead, put them in the chat, and then I'll start pulling them up, whatever you want to. Do you have any questions for any of us? But one of the things I like so much about Bernie's way to pay for student debt is with the 0.5% Wall Street tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a reason why that works so well is because, it's just, for one thing, it's only on big Wall Street trades. So it literally affects the people that regular society gives the least of a fuck about. Like, no one ever is like, well, what about the Wall Street traders? You know what I mean? Like, that's not, that's an easy sell. And on top of that, it has a very easy message of, we've bailed out Wall Street. Now they need to bail out the American people. I think that has an easy sell around it. And, and it's 5-6 years ago, it cost you $20 to put in a trade. Now you can do it for free. So, I mean, realistically, it's not even that much more expensive unless you're, Goldman Sachs, which fuck them anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not going to affect the average Joe. They only do it on high volume trades. I think that's one that we definitely need to push and rally around. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and shoot, and then I can just pop them up on screen here. That's not a question, but yeah, you get the idea. But yeah, you guys know there's another recount going on in Georgia.
This is the one that
second.
This is the one that Trump had to pay for, right? Because the first one was done by the state.
Right. They're recounting the recount. I think they're just doing the memory cards.
Oh, okay.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was on TV talking about we need to do a full audit because I just know my state's not blue. It's like, well, how do you know that? Because people voted for Joe Biden. I just know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any proof? Yeah.
Based on a feeling, let's fucking recount the whole state twice and audit it. Let's see what we got here. Yeah. Or did you see the what is it? The Amazon thing? Secret Amazon report. Secret Amazon report exposes the company's surveillance of labor and environmental groups. Dozens of leaked documents from Amazon's global security operations center, reveal the company's reliance on Pinkerton operatives to spy on warehouse workers, and the extensive monitoring of labor unions. They use fucking Pinkerton.
Damn, are you telling me Jeff Bezos isn't actually a good guy?
I know, right?
Y'all see that?
Uh-oh.
I got my Amazon shirt.
Oh, man. Boo hiss.
Yeah.
You participate in society?
Nah, but they definitely got some Pinkerton shit going on. I know they like stalk the drivers. The drivers don't even technically work for Amazon. They're a third-party company. That way, if like they run over
independent contractors,
1099,
right.
Yeah.
So that way, if they like hit somebody, it's not on Amazon. It's totally on the driver. But they also have Amazon like agents stalking the drivers to make sure like they don't go too fast or whatever. Which seems very strange. Like you're stalking someone that doesn't even work for you. But whatever.
All right. First question: is there any legitimate threat to Trump being written in as a senator in Georgia? That's one I hadn't heard yet.
I believe the answer to that would be no, because of residency requirements. I don't think he can be a senator since he hasn't lived in Georgia.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing.
But you know what? Hey, if we're into misinformation campaigns, let's do it. Republicans, if you love Trump, vote for him to be your senator in Georgia.
Yeah,
we might want to spread that one actually. And I think you have to register 90 days before or something, or 120 days
Well,
before.
yeah,
something.
so yeah, and I'm not even entirely sure if, since it's a runoff, even the normal uh, write-in rules would apply, since it's supposed to be just
Yeah,
between two
that's
candidates
true.
now.
Yeah.
So,
There's no.
but as someone that is not an attorney at all, I will not claim any knowledge on election law in the state of Georgia. So,
Right. Are there any parallels in the rise of conspiracy theories today and the rise of Nazis in Germany, of Nazi Germany?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to note with regards to the rise of fascism in Germany that it happened legally. This wasn't like some kind of power grab that Hitler and the Nazis did. The Weimar Constitution was really, really tough in making sure that autocratic regimes shouldn't actually be able to come to rise. So it played on what we're seeing happen now. The idea of us versus them, this mentality of radical nationalism. We're better than everybody else. This playing on the other. So here it's obviously immigrants. In Germany, it was Jews. And then you get into like Joseph Goebbels' rules of propaganda. Rule number one was accuse the opposition of that which you are guilty. How many times have we as a nation been gaslit over the last 4 years? And number two was repeat the lie until it becomes the truth. We know Donald Trump just repeats his lies over and over until eventually you get worn down and you believe it. So, I mean, it absolutely, it's almost like he's just reading Mein Kampf and he's just putting it back out here, and we're living it today, every moment. And, you know, again, we were able to win, but Hitler didn't win in his first election. It took a couple times, and it wasn't actually him winning an election outright. It was the moderates in the conservative movement in Germany thinking they could control him if they gave him a little bit of power. How many conservative commentators, Republican senators early on said Donald Trump's not going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. It's never going to happen. He's too outrageous. He's too out there. Then he was. Yeah. Then he was. There he was, and he won. So if it wasn't for the fact that it was just really hard because he was so incompetent, had Trump been smarter and understood how to do government, we would probably be in a much worse position than we are right now, which is why I was always on the camp of Ted Cruz is a lot more terrifying than Donald Trump, because he's got all of the rhetoric, but he's got a Harvard degree, so he like knows how to actually screw shit up.
I don't think Cruz quite has the charisma of Trump, but yeah, you're definitely right about actually knowing the system, and there's a lot of similarities between, you know, Nazi Germany and Trump. And one of the things is, you know, that's Lügenpresse was the original fake news.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it like you said, it's always a slow walk. Like it wasn't like Hitler got elected on like, we're gonna, you know, invade over here, we're gonna take over the world. That's not how it works. It's always a very slow walk. And, you know, people in the party, how many times did you hear, oh, the adults in the room are going to take care of this. Oh, and they won't let this happen. And you find out that our system of checks and balances is not as, you know, not as well done as you might think. And
there's a lot of gentlemen's agreements that like everyone else before Trump was just abiding by, but he said, fuck it. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. Yeah. And it's you know, the same thing with the pushing of conspiracy theories. Like Trump purposely has not disavowed QAnon. There's a reason for this. He pushes this stuff because he knows it helps him win, and it's basically win at all cost, and that's what he's doing. And and that's how this stuff grows and grows and grows. It went from a 4chan meme to, you know, now QAnon is actually getting people elected. It's a way to get elected in the Republican Party now, is just promote QAnon.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Oh, it's an interesting one. Oh wait, no, I hit the wrong one. That's a good idea though. How can we get rid of Cruz and Abbott in Texas? We need those two out.
I mean, that'd be pretty tough. I would like that though, but yeah.
Well, so Beto O'Rourke is trying to do in Texas what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia. It's a much larger state. It's a much more diverse state even. So it'll be harder. But Texas is a state that, even though Joe Biden won fewer counties in 2020 than Hillary Clinton did in 2016, and even though, and this is a problem, this should be alarm bells in the Texas Democratic Party and in the larger Democratic Party in general, he got a lower share of the Latino vote in 2020 than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. The vote margin still moved further towards Democrats. So the state is still trending blue. It's not going to get the rest of the way there because we're just cheering it on and it looks like the needle's moving in the right direction. I got a lot of friends in the Texas Democratic Party, especially in the Texas Young Democrats, who are doing a lot of work on the ground there. That's why it's getting there. But if you really want to know how you can do it, you got to knock doors. You got to make phone calls. You got to donate to candidates. You got to be a part of it on the ground. And that's sort of Stacey Abrams proved it in Georgia. You have to be a part of the grassroots movement. That's how you're going to get rid of these ideologues like Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott. That's the only way you're going to do it. You have to. None of this stuff just happens on its own. Again, democracy demands diligence. You have to be out there. You have to actually cause it to happen.
Most definitely. It's I'm basically going to piggyback off of that. Latino outreach. What a thing that Stacey Abrams proved in Georgia that needs to be done over these next 2 years, 4 years, is it's a full-time game. It has to be done 24/7. You have to get people excited about local races every year. You have to constantly knock on doors, and you have to, if you're going to fund and donate to campaigns, donate at the local level, at the state level.
Yep.
Not so much you giving Joe Biden $50 is not going to matter for the most part because he's got billed Mike Bloomberg money. But giving at the local level, that matters. But Latino outreach is very important in Texas because Trump actually, he moved the needle a little bit, with the POC vote. And, that's kind of worrisome. But they actually did work and tried to reach out to them. And Democrats have a bad habit of only doing it when it's time to get their vote. You have to do it constantly because our message takes a longer time to educate. Trying to break down the complexities of something like Medicare for All is a lot harder than saying like, well, I just love freedom and guns. And, you should have to pay less taxes and keep more of your money. Like that's an easy message if someone's not into politics. It's easier just to throw those buzzwords at them instead of giving them complex policy issues. But yeah, Latino outreach, constant ground game, knocking on doors, and maybe somebody who actually has real policies and not just is out there like Pete Buttigieg, like we'll win with the hearts of America and we want to bring back civility and like dude, I'm broke and I make $12 an hour. Can you help me? We need to actually help people. That's but yeah, God, I would love to see Ted Cruz go down. I just knew that we were going to lose both with the Lindsey Graham race and the Mitch McConnell race. Like I just knew it was going to happen, so I was never really excited about that. Wait, OAN got banned off of YouTube? Sweet.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was yesterday or day before.
Somebody sent it in the comments. Do you think Biden will have a strong enough COVID policy to get the virus under control?
Well, and here's an area where I actually kind of tend to agree with Republicans, which is it's going to be really hard to have a federal response that's going to work everywhere. I live in Arkansas. The policies that we implement here aren't going to be the same ones as they need to in New York. There are some baseline things that we need to do all across the board. Absolutely. But different states operate differently. That's why, to an extent, it's better. That's why we have, that's why being a quote unquote progressive means something different to a lot of people in Arkansas than it does in like California or Massachusetts or wherever. I think that what Biden could do, and I think this is something that he can kind of work with Republicans on, if he can calm down enough deficit hawks in the Senate, which is not an easy ask. If we
know they're coming up now.
Oh yeah, now they're like, holy shit, we have a $2 trillion deficit. How'd that happen? And if you can talk to them and you can convince them, let's pass, instead of just a blanket stimulus package, let's create like an $800 or $900 billion slush fund. But let's like put or a big massive money pot. Let's put some requirements on it. Let's say if you are a state that has to go into this level of a lockdown, so you have to close X number of businesses, you have to limit in-person contact, you have to close down your schools, that entitles you to X number of dollars of federal assistance. That incentivizes states to go into lockdown if they need to, and the virus is rampant, because in a lot of these states, especially in conservative states, the reason they're not going into lockdown is because they're prioritizing profits over people. They know it's going to hurt their economy. So if you give them federal incentive, if you give them federal dollars to help them take care of that, that gives them, especially if you're a conservative, that gives you more cover to tell the businesses, all right, we're going to do that. We're going to be able to go into lockdown now because we're going to be able to take care of you, and it's not going to cost us as a state anything. So that's, I think, a pragmatic approach that you can do to it. But it's going to be really hard at the federal level to, I mean, even constitutionally, I think legally, to pass some sort of federal, I think that mask mandates are totally constitutional. I think Jacobson v. Massachusetts, which is the Supreme Court case that established vaccination laws and is what established mandatory vaccination laws. I think that that's what a mask mandate would fall under if you were to try and challenge it and bring it up in court. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I think that anything beyond that, it's going to be really hard at the federal level to get that through courts, especially with the Supreme Court as it is now. So I think you have to think of some creative ways to get this done, but I think they do exist.
Yeah, I think it all depends. I think he'll have a good plan. I think it just depends a lot on if it's going to be funded properly, and if they're going to actually put forth legislation, put it on the floor of the Senate, and make people vote for it. You got to force Republicans' hand to vote for this stuff, because as long as they don't have to actually vote for it, it's going to be tough. But I think Biden, he actually believes in the science. I think the rollout of the vaccine seems to be going pretty well. I think he'll be able to get a handle on that. And I think, it just has to be, if we're going to have people stay home, and we're going to ask people to do this stuff to make our country better, we have to fund it. And first 100 days, we need a stimulus. We need to, have a real solid, 10-point plan or whatever. But then, he has to be in, good contact with these governors, because every state is different, and you are going to have to really focus on the state and local level for them to get it done. But they're going to have the backing of the federal government, not like Trump, who's like, oh, well, you're a blue state, so fuck you.
Yeah.
We can't do that. We gotta pass stimulus. We got to make sure everything is funded properly. And I think Joe Biden, if he can get that done fast, first 100 days, I think that'll go a long way to us, one, getting this fucking virus under control and getting back to normal, and two, going a long way to winning the Senate and winning seats back in 2022.
Yeah.
You want to add anything, or should I roll
No,
on?
yeah.
Good. All right. Well, goddamn, I just saw one. Well, we might as well, since we're on that. How soon do you think we might have a second stimulus plan? Just real quick, I think it needs to be the first thing he needs to do. I think day one, we need to have a stimulus plan rolled out, passed in the House, ready to vote on, put it in the Senate. I think it needs to be the first thing we need to do. And I think it needs to be $3 trillion plus, easily.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Biden's transition team and Biden personally is not almost on a daily basis already communicating with leaders in both houses of Congress already trying to hammer this out behind the scenes. I mean, I would legitimately be shocked if they're not already doing that.
Right. Because worst case scenario, we would need, what, three Republican votes?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Which is
I mean,
doable.
Mitt Romney, Murkowski, and Collins.
Yep.
So he should be able to get just about anything passed.
Yeah.
Do you think states will require kids to get the COVID vaccine at some point? I'm concerned that anti-vaxxers could hinder our recovery. Me too.
Yeah. Well, so I think it sort of goes back to when I mentioned a little while ago, Jacobson v. Massachusetts. This is a Supreme Court case, and I'll try and be brief in the explanation of it. It was this Swedish immigrant who lived in Massachusetts, who I believe it was the smallpox vaccine, and he did not get it when he left Sweden and came to the U.S. when he was a child. So he was an immigrant, and he didn't want to get the vaccine, and it was mandated by the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And he took them to court saying that it was a violation of his rights to force him to get this vaccine. And the Supreme Court ruled, and I think it was 7-2. It wasn't close. It wasn't a close ruling. And this was in 1902, by the way. So this is a 118-year-old precedent. So this isn't a new court case. This is a long time ago. They ruled that individual liberty can be sacrificed if the state can prove it justifies some kind of a gain for society at large. And when we know when there is a death count of over 250,000 people, we know that this is detrimental to individuals' livelihoods. You can make the argument, if you don't care about people, you can see what it's done to the economy, and if we have to go further down. And so I think that you could easily justify it through court. So it will be a problem trying to get anti-vaxxers, people who don't want to vaccinate their kids for anything anyway. But I don't think we're going to see people move into that camp. I think the people that are going to be against getting COVID vaccine were always going to be against it. I don't know if that's going to be a growing base necessarily, but I do think
I've seen some TikToks. It was like the Republican boys or something saying they wouldn't get it. So hopefully that doesn't get too big, but yeah.
Well, I'd hate to burst any bubbles, but I think it's going to be a serious issue because I don't know why, but the anti-vax community is growing like exponentially. Like it is growing very, very fast, and especially with this COVID vaccine, I think it's going to be an issue. And I think one thing that Biden really needs to work on is a social media information campaign around how this is a safe vaccine. And I think that needs to be a big part of all administrations going forward, because that's where so much of this misinformation comes from. And it needs to be a big part of the rollout. But as far as should it be required? I mean, I think so. As like Blake said, if it's for the betterment of society, it's legal to do that. And I mean, I think schools as a whole should just, you can't come to school, maybe not force them, but you're not allowed to come to school unless, you have this vaccine. And they really need to work on the messaging. They're going to get pushback from some Republicans. I can already tell you that, as far as they won't push the I'm anti-vax, but this is, I'm anti-free will. You know what I mean? They'll do something like that. So I think Biden needs to be very careful on how he rolls it out, how he words everything, all the information about it. And because it is very important, because if a large, section of the country doesn't get it, it's useless. You still have a serious chance of getting it. I live in Minnesota. The Somali community up here, they're very anti-vax. We had a measles outbreak 2 years ago because they didn't want to get vaccinated. So it can still definitely happen, and a lot of people are anti-vax. So I hope that they can just roll it out properly and get the right kind of messaging and laws around it.
Yeah. I should also say, for the record, Jacobson's defense in that court case, in 1902 was because he thought it would make him sick. So he was actually an anti-vaxxer. That was his argument. And the Supreme Court said you didn't present any evidence as to why that would be the case. So you lose.
Nice.
So
right. It kind of sounds like Donald Trump in court right now. Well, you don't have any evidence, sir, so you lose. But I saw a thing one time.
I'm told that voter fraud is bad.
Right. We have these affidavits. Like, you don't realize affidavits are just stuff people said. Like, it sounds fancy when you say affidavits, but it just, this guy said something, and, you know, people don't, like, they're like, oh, they signed this under penalty of perjury. It's like, well, yeah, but they never go after people. It's hard to prove that they knowingly said something false. Like, it's an impossible standard almost.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's just,
I had to fill out affidavits on a daily basis for my job when I took transmitter logs at the radio station. It was just, okay, the station at 5:50 a.m. was putting out 4 point whatever hertz, you know, and it was at whatever percent power. Then I had to sign it at the bottom, and we sent all that stuff into the FCC. So I mean, you know,
all right, he's
pretty
back.
regular thing I had to do.
Right. Well, all right. Well, looks like oh no, and he's gone again.
But
all right, guys. I just got a message. My dude, and do you know Matty Politics?
Yeah.
You ever seen his page? Apparently, they want to debate Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I guess so that should be fun. But I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
If you ever want to come on again, you know, just hit me up, you know, and we'll definitely do it again. Thanks everybody for coming to the stream. Really, really appreciate it. If you could like the stream on your way out, subscribe if you're not subscribed, all that good stuff. But right after this, about, I don't know, probably about 45 minutes, we're going to be doing my dude and Matty Politics are going to be debating the whole Kyle Rittenhouse situation. So I'm basically going to get off, grab some food, and then come right back. Yeah, but if you could like the stream, all that stuff, I'd really appreciate it. And I should have a new video coming out on my channel here in the next couple days, so look for that. Thanks so much. Thanks to Blake, Uncle Retus, who kind of already rolled out. Thanks a lot, guys. Peace.